My name is Jennifer Rice. The video you are about to see was produced while we were on assignment in Guyana, South America. We hope that it will help to explain the importance of aviation humanitarian relief in remote areas, especially in third world countries.
My name is Charlene Hicks, and my husband and I live here in Guyana. We're working on doing a Bible translation for the Wakashana Amerindians here, and I support him however I can and work on literacy projects as well. We get reading and writing. We often travel to the villages to do our work, and say if we were going from here, our home near Lethem, to Shelton, we would travel by vehicle. We have to have a four-wheel drive vehicle that has, if possible, snorkels so that we can go through deep water. In rainy season, we can't travel at all because there's so much rain on the roads that the water is too deep to get through, or the ground is too soft. So traveling in rainy season is pretty much something we don't do because it's too difficult. If we had an airplane that could transport us different places in the Rupununi here, that would speed up our work immensely. It would help us to be able to get the translation done much faster because in rainy season we wouldn't be stuck here waiting for transportation. And we would be able to fly to a village to do some checking or to work with a translator, or we could either that or have one of our translators be flown here. Right now we're waiting on a translator to come, and he will either have to walk or one of our translators can ride a bicycle, which is very difficult to do in rainy season because all of the water on the road. The water is deep enough to go over the front of our cab in places. Not all the places, but in certain places. Sometimes we have different kinds of emergencies here that are very life-threatening. Like poisonous snake bite is a very big one that we get often. And if it's a breech birth, there's absolutely we have no midwives in the villages, so that can be life-threatening. Or other kinds of accidents where someone got a huge gash or something and is bleeding to death. And there was one time that we were in the village, and some people had a small boy that had been bitten by a poisonous snake. And so they came to us to see if we had anything that could help. And we found out later that he did make it in time. But if there hadn't been a vehicle there, if they hadn't seen us, there's a lot of ifs. If they hadn't all been in place, he might not have made it in time and might have died on the way. Having an airplane would have speeded it up. That would have meant 1 hour, maybe 2 hours instead of 10 to 12 hours.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's very hard without an aircraft. It's very hard to transport a patient from here to Lethem because the road and no vehicles around. Sometimes we have to wait for days for responses from Lethem to reach a particular patient because it's very far. The distance is about 100 something miles. So it's very hard from here for one patient to reach referral center.
A lot of the things that we take for granted in the United States just simply don't exist in the third world. Things like ambulances, ambulance drivers, doctors, medicine sometimes. In this case, what was missing besides the lack of roads and simple transportation was a X-ray machine for this region, a region about the size of the lower part of Michigan. There was only one X-ray machine operational. This old man was run over by a truck and required an X-ray determine the extent of his injuries. The only machine available was almost 100 miles away by ground on roads that were almost impassable. In order to obtain those x-rays, we needed to transport him to where the x-ray machine was. One of the wonderful things about the U-206 are the cargo doors that enable us to actually put a stretcher in the back. It's not always an easy thing to do, but it's a lot easier than taking a man with a broken thigh, which happened to be this case, and putting him in a standard aircraft setting up. We're able to transport this man from the regional clinic in Lethem, Guyana, to a clinic further south over a mountain range that had a functioning x-ray machine. This trip took about 30 minutes by air, a relatively smooth ride over the roads that you can see, which were extremely rough and some places nearly impassable. I think because of the age of this man, he might not have survived a trip like this in the back of a pickup truck, which was the only transportation available, and he was lucky to have that. In some cases, fathers will carry their children or their pregnant wives miles through the bush in order to get to a place where the aircraft can pick them up and then take them to the hospital. Here you can see the clinic where the x-ray machine actually exists in a smaller village called Ixcan. And note the antenna tower on the final approach for this airstrip. It requires a slightly modified approach. This airstrip is 1,500 feet long, at least the gravel portion is 1,500 feet long, and it's a pretty easy strip as strips go. But having this aircraft means saving lives for a lot of people, not just here in Guyana where we were working last year, but in other remote areas of poor countries, such as Guatemala, where we expect to be serving this fall. You can see that removing the stretcher is a little bit of a tricky operation, requires some back strength. And we were lucky again to have some transportation from another volunteer at the receiving end to take this man for the relatively short 1-mile drive to the hospital. In this case, we're actually going to follow them to the hospital on foot, wait for the x-rays, participate in obtaining the x-rays, and return with him to the airstrip to return him to the regional hospital where we came from. None of it could be done without the aircraft.
Okay, there was a case at Guayana now where a pregnant woman was transported. It was reported, and instantly we reported that case, and the aircraft had to go in, and with that, a very fast action was taken, and I heard right now she is okay and ready to return home.
What was wrong with her? I forgot.
She's pregnant. She had a high blood pressure and swelling, and she could go to fits, and soon she was dead. Yet there was no aircraft. If you had an airplane, it would be. There's a quite difference. There's fast response when you have a serious patient. An aircraft can come in instantly and to transport that patient to Lethem or Georgetown. There are instances that we had to use this aircraft, this particular aircraft, and it's doing pretty good for the region. For the last couple of months. There were lives saved. Before that, we had to wait. As I said before, we had to wait sometimes days, weeks, hours for one patient to reach Latam. But with this aircraft, it's very useful. It has saved a lot of lives.
This aircraft has saved a lot of lives, and it's alleviated a tremendous amount of suffering. In the 6 months that we were able to operate this aircraft in South America, we provided 70 flights for urgent or emergency medical transports, mostly women and children, including 66 medical escorts and guardians, either doctors or parents typically. 80 medical volunteers were transported, greatly improving the efficiency of their time, one of the most valuable resources. And 46 returns of patients after treatment. And of course dozens of medical shipments of vaccines and fuel, food, other medical related supplies. And a wide assortment of other things that somehow found their way onto the aircraft during the empty leg of a flight. It's amazing what you can put on board a U-206. And that about wraps up this part of the presentation. And thank you very much for your time.